Good evening. Thank you, Dean Patterson and Citizens for Sustainable Government. Sustainable means able to uphold or defend. I grew up in a rural setting and worked in these communities and retired after 47 years in the financial industry. I've seen and heard things that disturb me and make me want to become more involved. I've observed things involving this election process that I don't believe would meet the test of a sustainable government. I was shocked to hear this statement by last November by the board president. Quote, everyone in this room has violated the Open Meetings Act and committed walking quorum violations. This should not be taking place if it is. I want this district to be open and transparent. The following terms were used in a trustee meeting in April of 2019, and I pray Garland ISD will never be considered a, quote, terms that were used, warehouse for prisons or a school to prison pipeline. Citizens, a lot of people don't understand, citizens elect the trustees hire the superintendent, he runs the district. I filed to run for place 6 on February the 12th, and on February the 22nd I received a letter from the trustees general counsel that stated, moving forward, staff and our board members will not respond to any questions for information from you. Is that acceptable actions from the elected officials of a sustainable government entity? Have these trustees forgot their oath of office to the citizens of this district? I was recently told I would be required to pay $2,304 and $4,104 for public information I've requested. Finally, I would recommend that an affordable, no tax increase bond program be considered to take care of program needs that were left out of the 2014 bond. If you want someone to uphold and defend your rights as a citizen of Garland ISD, please vote for Bob Duckworth, place 6. Thank you.
Can you see that, Robert?
Mm-hmm. That's on 3. These are 2.
Sorry.
Okay. Hi. Thanks to the members of the Citizens for Sustainable Government for hosting this forum. My name is Robert Selders, Jr., and I'm board president of the Garland ISD Board of Trustees. I'm running for re-election for my 3rd term as Garland ISD Board of Trustees, place 6, and would greatly appreciate your support. I'm running as my wife, nearly 25 years, my 3 beautiful daughters who have been students within the Garland ISD. My daughter Maya, she graduated from Garland High School and is currently a sophomore at Clemson University. My daughter Nina is currently a sophomore at Garland High School, and my daughter Ava is an 8th grader at Austin Academy and will be attending Garland High School as a freshman. I've been a resident and taxpayer within the Garland ISD for about 22 years, and I'm also a small business owner. I own 3Q Fitness, CrossFit Garland in downtown Garland, and I've been there for 13 years. We live in challenging times, and there are more challenges ahead. I firmly believe that we must work to continue moving the district forward by focusing on healthy children who have a safe and healthy environment to learn that will also allow them to grow and develop healthy minds with the tools and skills needed to be prepared for college, career, and life so that they can become contributors to a healthy community. And I will say that as a school district, I think it's very, very important for you to do your own due diligence and not necessarily pay attention to things that people say or try to push. I think it's also important that as taxpayers, we all are responsible for following the processes and procedures of the district because they're in place for a reason. No one is above the law. No one is above that. It applies to everyone, including me. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. So we have a little short set of questions here to give you a chance just to elaborate on your ideas and thoughts and experiences and so forth. And Dean, you're ready with a short list of questions. We'll start, you get the first shot at this one, you second, Robert. How have you been engaged with GISD over the past year?
Over the past year, did you say?
Over the past
years.
Have you been like that a decade or?
Well, I was born in Garland, and I went to the first 10 years of school in Garland. I was was fortunate enough, I say, to have graduated from a small rural high school in Nevada, Texas, community high school. I thought I'd quit school basically because when you go into a classroom of 16, 18 kids, and you have a teacher, you have 5 or 6 teachers that teaches the whole entire high school, you get a very much more in-depth and hands-on education. I graduated from high school in 1962, got married in November, came back to Garland and started my banking career I mentioned in 1962 with the old First National Bank in Garland. So as I said, I've had 47 years of banking experience. I've worked my way up, as, back those days to get into banking, your dad's name was important to get you in the door. And my dad was well respected. My family was a well respected group in the community. And back then, your name was more valuable than the credit score because there were no credit scores. But anyway, I grew from that, and so I spent 47 years in the banking environment. I've lived here for 77 years, my entire life. And I got involved in one of my favorite parts of the school system is the FFA program, which I'm still involved in. We've had some dramatic changes in that program the last 2 or 3 years, and the COVID even added some additional challenges. This year we're going to have a show again, and I'm so grateful for those kids that we're going to be able to do that. And I'm trying to hustle money, but I'm needing to get a little more information from the district and suggest some things that I'm working on. But in my 47 years of banking, I couldn't remember and write down all of the organizations I've been on the board of. I've chaired the Main Street Garland Committee for 5 years while I was making a living at First National Banking, or not First National, but in the old the old Garland Federal Savings Bill where Inwood is now. That was a volunteer relationship for me. But what we did back then, the downtown area was going down very, very quickly. And I was able to put together a group, had a $100,000 a year budget, got 50 from the state of Texas. We became part of the Texas Historical Commission. So I learned a lot of things today. I learned how to form a 501c3 organization through the IRS. It took me 3 or 4 stabs to do that, but I finally got somebody who said keywords mean a whole lot. So in those things, so I've been a community supporter. I was a part of starting the Friendship House group. I've been on numerous boards over the years. I've retired from many of them now, but still active in First Baptist Church on the Baptistry Committee, Finance Committee. So I stay involved as I can.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Robert, I will keep that question so you can go back as far as you want to really go back to your initial involvement. How have you been engaged with GISD in the past?
I've been engaged with GISD for a number of years now. When I started my business in downtown Garland in 2008, took some time to get things ramped up, and in 2009, I joined the Garland ISD Student Health and Advisory Council and eventually became the parent co-chair. And since then, I've taken the opportunity to really dig in, and when I became a board member in 2015, just being able to contribute at a high level in gaining over 5 years of school board experience as well as governance experience. All of that experience is going towards my commitment to helping all students within Garland ISD have the opportunity to be prepared, not only for a college career in life, but also to have the opportunity to have access to an exceptional education. So I've done things like reading opportunities in our K-5 schools, attending dyslexia simulations so that I understand how students who have dyslexia, the challenges that they're faced with, being able to celebrate with our National Math and Science Initiative scholars, recognizing them for all of their accomplishments, being able to be present when we open the natatorium, attending school board conferences to improve my understanding and my knowledge level as a trustee to be able to deliver that and give back to the Garland ISD community. Also having conversations with lawmakers, talking about issues that are important for us as a school district to make sure that we have, and our students have, everything that they need to be successful. Our teachers are supported, our administrators are supported. So all of the work that I've been doing has been geared towards making sure that students that live in our Tri-Cities and our communities have what they need to be successful, and again, are prepared to walk out of our doors more than capable to handle whatever challenges come their way in a college setting, in a career setting, or military setting, and just life in general.
Russell, thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Also, how should the board, and on what topics should the board advocate for our state lawmakers?
Me.
We are just gonna go through these, if that's okay.
I think the top three challenges that Garland ISD faces as a district, and this is where I would begin with our lawmakers, is first, learning loss recovery due to COVID. COVID has exposed so many different challenges that were probably already there lying dormant, that haven't been really addressed as much as they probably could have been, but now, because of COVID, they've become a lot more exposed. Again, learning loss recovery is one of them. Being able to fund universal pre-K. Those are items that were covered in, with funding from a school standpoint in House Bill 3. We're hoping that continues to come through, and that they make good on that promise. The third one would be making sure that we have the proper pieces in place for our special education programs, and making sure that student management is also in place. I think another area would be in the funding of charters. There's all these reports out there that talk about charter schools receiving a whole lot of funding, but they don't perform as well as public schools. So my question is, why is that? Why do you have a system that receives so much more funding than the system that actually creates the performance metrics that you would expect and hope to see? One that is actually moving the needle. So with all of those things, I think it's really important for us to talk to our lawmakers and advocate on behalf of not only our students, but also our citizens.
Okay, thank you, Robert, and you'll get the last chance at this question. I'll repeat it again.
Okay, thank you.
How should the board, and what topics should the board advocate for with our state lawmakers?
One of the things I have observed through this COVID situation is Mr. Selders referred to, is this issue is uncovering numerous challenges in our educational process. We're finding just children who don't have connection to the internet. The district is moving towards helping that, but one of the things they were talking about putting a tower, and there was a delay in that because there was a lack of information. And I even contacted Angie Chin-Button and several agencies, and nobody will flatly say there is no danger. It's minimal risk, those kind of terms on that. And I don't have a concern for that. I think the way they approved it is going to be equitable for the citizens and the children. But that's one thing. But I told Ms. Ann Chin-Button, I said somebody at the state level needs to come out and say, because none of Dallas is doing this, they're putting cell towers everywhere, I'm sure. And we're going to probably be doing that in the future in Garland for our kids to have access. So I think our state and I think our legislatures need to step out and make some decisions based on some of the new technology we're going to have to push out to help these kids. I mean, the district is even talking about having entire homeschooling, which, as I understand it, will be, you could go from kindergarten to graduation in high school through an online system, never going to a building class unless you were involved in some academic or football or baseball, just some program that wasn't in the school building. And if I understand that right, and that's based on the minimal information I have, that's what I understand. One of the comments I made in there about the Open Meetings Act and violations, something I've been doing the last 4 or 5 years, and it goes back to the 2014 bond issue. When I voted for that bond issue, and it took me 2 years to find out that they left the ag facility out of that bond program. And I know now it was done intentionally by the superintendent, should have never happened. I'm not saying that the natatorium we have is not great for the students that we have, but those ag students have labored now for 6 or 7 years in a 50-year-old facility, and I've had someone in administration tell me that our kids, when they go off to A&M and these other cool schools, they have a disadvantage because they haven't had the educational facilities that they need. So we have put certain needs ahead of others. How we justified that, I don't know. It took me, like I said, it took me 2 years to get somebody to admit that that program was left out intentionally. I'm hoping that's one of the things I talked about, that bond issue. I would like to see us push a no tax increase bond issue, and that's the first thing I'd take care of those kids.
Okay. Thank you, Bob, on that. So we've gotten through the first 2 questions. We have 5. So you get the first shot at this one. And some of them overlap a little bit, so that's okay. What issues do you see involving state funding of charter schools versus public schools?
I'm not an expert on that. Mr. Selders probably knows a lot more about that, being in the position he is in the district. But I hear discussions about why are kids going to charter schools. Our district's numbers are dropping. In fact, I presented to the school board recently in a public forum that the white population of the district has dropped almost 2,000 kids in 30 months. And my question is, where are those kids going? I think a lot of people are leaving Garland to better improve their family life. You know, they're moving from Garland to go to Frisco, to other areas where they have these brand new school districts and brand new facilities. I don't know if I don't have the statistics to tell you that those parents are moving because they want to live in a nicer home that's available there. I'm not sure there's enough analysis, and I think that's something that the school district probably may have. I don't know. I haven't found it if it's out there. Is why a question I have asked? Well, do we go to these families and do we say, why did you leave Garland ISD? What was the reason? Was it economic? Was it beggar home? Didn't have a home in Garland that you could buy that met your needs? Was it educational? What was it? But if we had 1,800 children just in that one class leave the district, I would think statistically, if you did an analysis on those 1,800 kids, you'd get a lot of valuable information to say, why are charter schools growing? Why are we wanting to get charter schools going? There's a difference in the educational process for charter schools and public schools, as I understand how the funding is. I don't understand that fully. But I've always said in life, if there's a vacuum, something will fill it. And so there's a reason those charter schools are coming into existence. Anything that comes about and comes to exist is because of a need. It's not being fulfilled or something that's being done that you can find it elsewhere. So I'm sorry can't go as in depth perhaps as others because I'm not that knowledgeable about that subject on charter schools. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks, Bob. Robert, I'll repeat the question for you. What issues do you see involving state funding of charter schools versus public schools?
You know, I'll start off my comments by saying I'm a huge proponent of education, and I support parents' right to choose how they educate their children. So in educating them based on their individual needs, I understand that different school systems offer different things. But when I think about school funding of charters versus public schools, there are certain facts that just cannot be ignored. In Texas, public school systems outperform charters, period. 86.2% of public schools in Texas have an A or B rating from the Texas Education Agency accountability rating compared to 60% in charters. So you have to ask yourself, why would I send my children to a system that doesn't perform at the level that I would expect them to perform? And why is funding such that charter schools are getting more funding than public education? I mean, it's a known fact that students who attend charters are going to get more state funding, and also charter schools also receive private investment money as well. So when you look at all those things that come into play with respect to that, including the fact that public schools have to educate all students. Charter schools don't have to do that. They could choose. And when we look at all of the different challenges associated with educating students, we take that on and we take it in stride. And we utilize the resources that we do have to deliver the highest quality education that we can to our students. And so we're not asking for charters to go away. Right? The competition doesn't bother us. In fact, the way we compete is by continuing to outperform them. All we ask is for the funding to be equitable with respect to public schools and the charters. So if you even the playing field, then I think that's truly a competition. So without getting into all of the different nuances of it and all of the history of charter schools, I think that the issue of funding charters versus public schools is that we just want the playing field to be level at the end of the day. And that's what anybody else, I think, most reasonable people would want for themselves.
Okay. I think that answers the question. So, moving on to the fourth one, you'll get the first shot at this one, Robert. What do you see as the most pressing issue facing our district, and how will you address it?
I think Garland ISD has made significant progress over the years in terms of what we've done in terms of educating our students. Probably one of the most pressing issues for us is being able to recover learning loss from the COVID pandemic. It's huge and it cannot be understated. When we look at the urgency with which we need to move, I think that we're not alone. I think school districts across the country are experiencing the same thing. No one is immune to it, and we all have to look at it with fresh eyes. But I think that when you look at it a little bit deeper, what's also been revealed is that students of color and students of poverty have been hit the greatest. So Mr. Duckworth talked about broadband access, making sure that all students have access to materials that will allow them to stay in front of high quality instruction. And so with that, I think as a district, we've demonstrated on a level that I've seen recently that has shown promise. We've had a couple of failing campuses or campuses that were in pretty rough spot. We applied an ACE model. ACE stands for Accelerating Campuses of Excellence model to these campuses. And prior to us doing that, if you look at these achievement gaps that are already existing and have persisted for a number of years, which showed Black and Latino students performing at a lower level than Asian and white students, you have to ask yourself, why is that? What's happening? We applied these models into schools that were struggling, and within a year and a half, they completely transformed. Same students, greater results. So you ask yourself, what is it? What did we do different? So we brought in leadership, different leadership. We also changed the school culture. We made sure that we had the best teachers in front of our most academically fragile students. We extended the school day, brought in some additional programs, gave them what they needed when they needed, and those students thrived. So that tells me that we don't really necessarily have a student issue, but we do need to look at and have fresh eyes to apply the resources in ways that help our students get the things that they need when they need them. And that applies to all students. And I think all students struggle in one shape, form, or fashion or another, but it's on us to determine what those struggles are and the resources that they need in order to be successful. And so as a district, we're looking at this from a cross-functional standpoint. We're bringing resources from all across the districts. Teams are working in a cross-functional fashion and working with district leadership as well as campus leadership to make it happen for our students.
Thank you, Robert. Yeah, it's a very complex issue. No one there. You want me to repeat that for you, Bob? What do you see as the most pressing issue facing our district, and how will you address it?
I think, as Robert alluded to, in some of the cases, probably COVID is one of the biggest challenges in our district right now. I don't know that anybody in this district could say where the children in this district are as far as where they at in their grade level right now. there are a lot of kids that will grow and learn without a whole lot of help. You know, typically in schools, I think in a classroom, teachers usually look at a third and a third and a third. You got a third that's going to learn whether I help them or not. A third that's in this group that I can move them up into passing, and there's a third that, man, I don't know if I can help them or not, get them in the second class. And that's a challenge for teachers, it's a challenge for parents, it's a challenge for the district. You know, that all adds up into the final graduation rate. Dyslexia is one thing the district has really stepped up on. In fact, Daphne has mentioned, I think, and I'm taking out of line, that she's had experience with that, and I think that's one reason our district is going to do a lot better job is by recognizing dyslexia. And if I was a trustee, that's where I think I would look at where we need to concentrate and find those kids early. You know, if we can get them out of that dyslexia syndrome that they're in, they can cruise through school the rest of their career. But if we wait till they're in high school to find them, they've struggled for years. Another thing is the desegregation order, and I've stated this in front of Mr. Selders and the other trustees. I've tried to get on the multi-ethnic committee 2 times and was denied to be on that committee. I've studied that desegregation order thoroughly from 1970. In fact, I have a disc at home that has every court order that's ever been approved, every piece of paper, and I've read through most of those, or a lot of them. At this point in my study, and I've made this comment, I think the district should look at seeing if the district could not come out from under that order. When we started in 1970, and that came out of the 1964 desegregation order, they sued every district in the state, or in the United States. You know, that was back when it was 90% plus white and 10%, and you know, there was a single school, as we all know the history of that. Our demographics of our district are totally different. Now we're 16% white, 17% black, 50+% Hispanic. So we're in a new world of educating children. I never thought of dual language. Hispanic. When I was in high school, if you came into school and you spoke Spanish, you learned to speak English, and that's how it operated. So I think the population changed. One of the things concerns of mine is these number of children coming into the U.S. We've got 3,000 students in Dallas, and if those children are turned loose.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, that's an interesting, all these are interesting to hear you guys comment on. Thank you very much for addressing these. So this is the last question. Let's see, who was first last time? I think Bob was first last time. So
I'm getting the high curve. I'm getting the high curveball this time.
Oh, you're getting pretty odd. That's right. You answered last thing, you just got through, right?
Yeah.
So this last question gives you a chance to kind of speak more broadly and openly, kind of a closing statement, if you will. I know you will appreciate that flexibility. Why are you the best person for this job?
You know, John, I'm not going to say I'm the best person. I'm one of God's children on this earth, and we're all the same. I just have a desire to serve the district. I've lived here all my life, but as I told you a while ago, I got deeply involved in the bond program, and it took me 2 years to figure out, for somebody in the district, to finally admit to me that was left out of the program. They kept saying, you gotta wait. I began to dig, and Mr. Selders knows this. I've done 15 public information requests since last June. Been criticized for it, but that's the only way you can get information from the district, because as he stated, he works under certain rules and regulations, and they can't just talk about everything. But that's been a challenge to me. But I've learned a lot through those public information requests. And as I commented, I made 2 recently, and they want me to pay out the wazoo for information. I don't think that's right. I've sent both of those to the Attorney General's office in a complaint. Information should be freely given to us, and if there's a reasonable price. But it's kind of like somebody comes in here and wants a funeral and say, well, I'll do it for $100,000. You know they're not going to accept your price. And I kind of look at that like this. I think I bring maturity. I think I bring transparency is a term that I use a lot, and some of the board members kind of draw up when I say that. But if in truth the violation of the Open Meetings Act and walking quorums exist, and that was what one of my public information requests was for information to prove that. I've got to figure out whether I'm going to pay the $2,000 or $3,000 to get it, or just see if I'm elected to the board, and then I'll have access to that information, and I'll see if they actually are doing that. So anyway, I just want to be involved. I'm a watchdog. I'm a sheepdog. I grew up in the banking industry. I did it for 47 years. I was a regulator. In 1968, when the regulations did come in, which was the disclosure of interest rates on loans, guess who they gave it to figure out? Even the regulators in Washington didn't know how to disclose the interest rates on loans. So over the years, I have created, Mr. Glick made the comment, he likes to read policies. I don't particularly like to read policies, but I will read them because I believe in doing things according to the way the law says you'll do it. I don't believe in varying too far out the side. Black and white are things I look at when it comes to is it you do this or is it right or is it wrong? And I learned that through the banking industry. And I read things and I see things that other people don't. I used to get criticized by my fellow bankers for calling them out about things that were incorrect on their documentation, et cetera. So I have a knack for looking at things and finding little errors, and I could go on and on about things that I've discovered. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Robert, same question, and I'll repeat it for you. It's pretty simple, but I'll repeat it because we've done that so far. Why are you the best person for this job, Robert?
I think I'm the best person for this job. One of the reasons I think is because I have a vested interest in the district being phenomenal. My children are in the district, and they've been in there since they were in kindergarten. And God willing, they will all graduate from Garland ISD schools, prepared for college, or their career, or their life. I feel that just my life's experiences has given me the opportunity to see things at a different perspective, much more of a unique perspective. As having been a student athlete, going through college, getting an engineering degree, working in corporate America, and then after hearing from God, pursuing what I felt that He called me to do, and that was to change my career. Education allowed me to do that. Had I not had an education, I wouldn't be able to pursue, I think, in the same way maybe, the path that I felt that God has led me to do. And that was to start helping people improve the quality of their life through their physical health. And so now I'm a business owner and giving back to the local economy as a business owner as well as the community. So I think small business owner, employer, that sort of gives me a different perspective. And I think this perspective allows me to provide voice and action towards, keep going, I think serving the needs of Garland ISD students, employees, and the district in general. I think I mentioned earlier that we live in challenging times, and I think that there are more challenges on the horizon. And I feel it's very important to not only have stable leadership in place, but leadership that has demonstrated that it's going to do what's in the best interest of all students in making tough decisions. And that doesn't make you always the most popular person, but I think it's doing the right thing for our students. I continue to be committed to helping the district to set goals that are SMART. When you talk about the SMART acronym, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. They have to be that. And making sure that we put in the systems in place and hold people accountable to making sure that we reach those goals and asking tough questions when that doesn't happen. So I think I have been and always will be a strong advocate for public education. And going forward, I think that I believe all students should and